Hi, my name is Erica Illingworth, and I want to talk to you today about a topic that is increasingly important in all of our lives, and that is the role of website interactivity and Web 2.0 applications, such as social media, and how they can be used to build relationships between a government and its citizens. This project represents a truly multidisciplinary approach to this problem of bridging the gap online between citizens and governments. We deal with website interactivity, which are the functions of web design that offer native opportunities for that kind of engaged interactivity, that meaningful feedback and two-way conversation and dialogue. We're also talking about the rise of user-generated content that makes up Web 2.0. No longer do you have to be a coder to participate online. This is really a forum that is increasingly democratic. We're also talking about the whole government's web presence, from emails to RSS feeds to billing transactions to social media accounts. And finally, we're talking about models of communication that go beyond information dissemination. We're talking about reaching people where they are and engaging them in meaningful conversations to participate in their own local governance. And we're meeting citizens' needs both formally and informally. One thing I realized when I was thinking about this problem is that there's a very Maslow's hierarchy of needs that has to happen before a person and a government can interact in a meaningful way. I've dubbed it the pyramid model of political engagement in an effort to sound academic and erudite, but really it boils down to this. If you can't afford access to the internet, or if you lack the physical ability to see or hear the content that's online, your voice is absent from that conversation. Once access is achieved, if the website presented to you lacks any interactive functionality or a way to provide meaningful feedback, then at that point the conversation is over. However, if good usability and interactive elements are satisfied on a functional level, then we can move to the behavioral pieces. And here at the top of the pyramid, we have an organizational attitude and structure that supports consistent and reliable communication. And it's only after all three of these tiers are satisfied do citizens have a burgeoning feeling of trust, which then leads to more engagement with content. And the more citizens engage with content, the more they trust the government, and so on and so forth, until the organization breaches that bond of trust in some form or fashion. So let's start at the bottom of the pyramid first with a quick survey of accessibility factors. I'm going to swing through these statistics on the city of Longmont pretty quickly because the main thing I want you to take away from this section on accessibility is that these are factors that affect municipal government, and any city can apply these same type of census demographic data and criteria to determine where their own gaps in accessibility may be hiding. These gaps in accessibility are collectively known as the digital divide. So first up, we know that in the digital divide, households that make less than $30,000 a year have much lower adoption rates for technology, and they often don't have at-home internet access or internet-enabled devices. Next, your primary language plays a big role in who is online consuming content. So multilingual and multicultural content is really important to provide a feeling of inclusivity in the community. Nationally, only 64% of adults over the age 65 are online. Compare that with 99% of adults under the age of 30. So even though grandma's on Facebook now, there are a lot of other grandparents who are not, and the digital divide is just really pertinent for the senior population in any given community. Finally, persons with a disability are 3 times less likely to be online, regardless of what that disability is. So this could be due to the actual physical impairment of seeing or hearing that content and needing to use an assistance device. But depression and other side effects of living with a disability also keep people isolated and offline. All right, so what does all this mean? Well, it shows us opportunities for solutions that exist across the digital divide spectrum. For example, to close the gap in online literacy, a website can offer a feature tour. This is an overlay to the landing page of the website that is kind of a step-by-step map or guide to introduce the main features of the website. Other ideas include taxpayer-funded tech centers and making sure that we're posting to social media in a language other than English. Reaching our older audience with peer-to-peer volunteer teaching programs, and making sure the website itself is ADA compliant and that all of our videos are captioned and our HTML code is tagged appropriately for things like screen readers. Once we satisfy the accessibility requirements, the next tier of our pyramid are the functional requirements, and these are used to drive engagement on the website itself. In terms of usability, I give concrete recommendations for the City of Longmont's website in the paper, but for this talk, I want you to consider how these factors impact the websites that you manage and how they impact your own audience. So, is your website intuitive? Is it responsive? Is it simple? Is it pretty, visual, bright, concise, consistent? Is it media rich? As Steve Krug says, don't make me think. Now, you can make your website extensible with a variety of Web 2.0 applications. For example, we all know that print media is dead. Blogs, forums, chat rooms, and online newspaper subscription services have taken its place, offering value for engagement and an opportunity to really boost SEO if you're trying to rank for the Googles. These applications help guide discussions and generate meaningful feedback in the form of user-submitted comments. And they help an organization control its message, which is becoming ever more important in this media age. Next, photos and videos are some of the most powerful tools in your arsenal. YouTube is the number 2 search engine right now, and we know that our brains process images 60,000 times faster than they process text. Social media is another really powerful tool for governments, and it's important to note that posts with originality have been seen to generate a depth of conversation. That's your likes and the comments on the post, while media-rich and photo posts encourage sharing, so they give you the breadth or the reach to a new audience. The informal tone of social media helps humanize an organization, and it really gives you an opportunity to inject some fun into, yes, even policy making. Finally, one of my favorite tools in the new Web 2.0 arsenal are all those ridiculous and inane quizzes and polls and surveys that exist online. They are entertaining and engaging. They're a great way to gauge the persuasion of your audience, and they're one of those things that people love to share. So irrespective of individual or cultural influences or predispositions, we know that there are some concrete ways to drive engagement through building trust. It really does look like this. It boils down to consistency and reliability as the 2 factors that feed the trust and engagement feedback loop. So knowing that it takes access, interactivity, reliability, and consistency to build that return on investment of trust and relationship with our citizens, how does the government do its part to build this pyramid? Well, taking the City of Longmont as an example, we have several external services departments that are heavily siloed that could really benefit from a reorganization into a central communications office and brand management team that's able to route service tickets and build content and have conversations and keep the messaging consistent within the organization, even if the marketing itself remains targeted for each department. Now that I've given you a wealth of information about accessibility and functional and behavioral factors, I want to talk a little bit about some of the pitfalls or challenges of this approach. Number 1, perhaps most obviously, is that the website and web presence is on the World Wide Web, which means it's available to everyone, not just residents or citizens. So we have to make sure that we're taking that into account when we look at any kind of feedback or quiz results. Which leads me to my second point, which is that any poll or survey or quiz we put out there has an inherently unscientific bias. Participants are self-selecting and not necessarily unique. It provides an opportunity for one voice or one special interest group to dominate the conversation. So it's really important to have a central communications organization that can both vet the origin of communications, and make sure that the conversations that are being had are not dominated by the few. And then finally, we have to make sure that if the community does engage and voices opinions, that they are heard and regarded in such a way that change happens. Because if those opinions are disregarded or if they never come to fruition, the trust that we work to build is ultimately going to be lost, and the community will only remain frustrated and alienated by any efforts to engage online. This has been such a fun and enlightening exercise for me, and I hope you were able to take something away from this talk. Please, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me at erica.illingworth@longmontcolorado.gov. Thank you very much.